Ecobro. That's my
Ecobro.
Yeah.
You're not doing
Ecobro Rec to Grow.
that. Okay. So, yeah, let's just talk about that. Let's talk about you, how you got in there, where you started.
Well, let's see. Born and raised on a farm in Alabama, eons ago.
Shout out to Alabama.
Yeah.
Family's out there.
And my grandfather had 100 acres, and he was a cotton farmer, peanut farmer. We had livestock. He had equipment, he's a fifth grade education, but he was able to acquire the property, all the equipment that was needed, necessary, and became a community leader. But, his grandsons didn't want nothing to do with farming, so, we was in a whole new era coming out of the 60s, civil rights movement. So all of the boys, even though we worked on the farm coming up, there was a lot of hard labor, and I was like, the hell with that. So we all ran away from it, but I came back. Like in 14, 15, I got into hydroponics. So I took a class in San Diego for about 12 weeks, learned hydroponics, and then from hydroponics I got into aquaponics and studied aquaponics a while, and then from aquaponics I got into vermiponics, and then we looked into aeroponics. So there's different ways to pontificate your farm life if you want to be a 21st century farmer, right? And I think doing it without soil to me is best, because not only can you count your revenues in cubic inches opposed to square footage,
Right.
but if you're concentrating on specialty crops, like a wasabi or bok choy or the curries, other ethnic type foods that carry a high profit margin, that's the farmer of the future. And I want to be located in a city. I may have my garden on the rooftop. I may have it in a parking lot, but the restaurant is right there. So there's no carbon footprint. That's from farm to table. And we could do that kind of stuff now. So, but, from there my life kind of shifted toward, you could say, holistic health. And I got into moringa about 8 years ago. And once I got into moringa and started understanding what it is, the tree, let's call it tree of life, been around since 2000 BC, been suppressed by the large pharmaceutical companies because it contains everything. It's a perennial, it's the most nutrient-dense plant on the planet since 2000 BC. But here it is. All of these processed GMO modified food that people are eating now to rush you through the system ain't cutting it. So let's get back down to some basics. So moringa, and I started up moringa tang. Turn all African nations green, or turn all nations green.
So,
either way, right?
easy.
So one of the problems that we have really in the African American diet is hypertension, diabetes, and obesity, right? It's killing us. Well, my thing is everybody should have a tree in their backyard, on their patio, if you live in the city, because this is your way to better health. It doesn't matter if you're eating 2 seeds a day like I do, if you're taking 2, 3, 4 capsules a day, or you could put it in a salt shaker. In a shaker, get rid of that salt shaker. That's your hypertension shaker. And just consume it throughout the day. And your body will thank you for it.
Okay. All right, so the new urban farmer, basically. The first, I've been in the cannabis industry for several years, seen some stuff, and for me personally, it just never kind of landed. So through mutual connections and whatever you want to call it, the universe working, we eventually come here. I'm a soil guy, obviously, taught kind of basic soil, entry-level knowledge, and just being in the cannabis industry, that's all you hear, that's all it's preached. All the companies are kind of growing the same way, and being me, and my quest for knowledge, meeting our mutual friend Dre, who's out in Ghana right now. He put us in contact, and just never stopped the learning process. I mean, it's just so much information. Like, I thought I knew. I thought I knew it, man. And like Dre showed me, he had a huge aquaponic system out in Kansas City. It was patented. It was crazy. A lot of times, or during the time of the whole civil rights movement, the Black Lives Matter, he was just out there working with the community, building that, trying to give back. And me personally, I get the activism, but I feel like the work has to be behind it. And Dre was just a leading example of that. And then, he's out there teaching people how to grow this stuff. I never sat down with Dre, just like I never sit down with you, and I don't learn something. So just thank you for having us. Thank you for entertaining this idea of trying to spread this knowledge out there. But yeah, let's kind of go back. Let's talk about that whole tree of life, that moringa. What is moringa? Tell us about just tell us about the plant.
Yeah, it's the most nutrient dense plant on the planet, and it has all types of beneficial attributes, if you will, to humanity. For instance, high blood pressure, cancer, diabetes, obesity, you name it. Vitamins, every vitamin that you get out of fruits, it has at least 20 times more. Okay?
That's a lot.
So it has these special compounds like a zeatin, like a isothiocyanate, which creates a cycling effect in our blood system. And long-term use of it, it becomes part of your cell structure. So, I'm not a scientist, and I'm just speaking on what I've known and what I've noticed over the last 8 years of me consuming it. It's like cosmetics. This oil here could be used for skin care. It is also can be used to cook with, right? It's rated higher than any canola, mazola oil a vegetable oil that you can find in the supermarket. But you won't find it in the grocery store.
This is moringa seed oil?
Yeah, this is moringa seed oil. And this is baobab seed oil, right? Two different oils, but all extracted from the seed, cold pressed. And so, like for instance, right now, you could use this on your skin to get rid of this kind of anti-aging. It helps your skin. It looks vibrant all the time. I use it on my skin. I have toothpaste that has moringa oil in it.
Yep,
saw
that.
I'm not using any fluoride anymore at the last 2 years. The capsules, you could use it. You could take 2 capsules in the morning, 2 at night if you like. For me, because there's no real standard on it, I would say just put it in a salt shaker and shake it on your food throughout the day as you consume it. If you eat 3 meals a day, then you're going to consume it 3 times a day. Easy. If you want to put it in a bottle of water, if you happen to be out jogging, sprinkle a little bit into the water, shake it up, and then drink that, because it's going to give you energy and clarity as you're doing your workout. Now, the seeds can also be used. I try to tell people is you can no more than 2 of these a day, but some people roast them, but I peel them.
Eat them raw?
Yeah, and eat them raw. There's a little white seed there. Just pop it in your mouth, and as soon as you put it in, your organs are going to start talking to you immediately. Like,
can I try that actually?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're going to learn something every time you consume a seed, because it starts talking to you directly. Now it has a long tap root, therefore it is it sequesters carbon 20 times more than any other tree in the world. So if you're a farmer, let's just say you're in an 8.5 zone in the South, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, where the tree would just grow rapidly, right? Mm-hmm. You should be able to qualify for a carbon offset on your farm. But guess what? As it's sequestering carbon on your farm, it is also putting more nutrients back in the soil for your next crop. So a lot of people, what they do now, it's like if you're growing certain fruits and veggies or whatever, you can do intercropping. Put the trees in the middle of your rows and just watch how the change in your plants are going to start perform in ways that it's not even imaginable.
Working with Tuskegee kind of hits really home with me, and it's another reason why like things are just always connected. But yeah, can you just tell us about Tuskegee a little bit, farming down there?
Yeah, so I have a deep loyalty to Tuskegee. Most of my aunts and uncles went to Tuskegee. And of course in Henry and Houston County in Alabama, a lot of my friends that I grew up with attended Tuskegee. My uncle used to be George Washington Carver's driver, chauffeur, if you will, way back in the day, right? And then we're a distant cousin to Rosa Parks. So the history with Tuskegee and the lineage, one of the things that I tried to do, say over the last 5 years or so, I've been in Tuskegee probably 10 times in the last 10 years.
Jeez.
And more than I went when I was a kid growing up in Alabama. But my travels took me to Tuskegee. I got invited to do a workshop at the campus on aquaponics. And we probably had about 30 people there. Dean Hill was there at the time. And that went over very well, but I never understood how Tuskegee was so far behind Auburn. Auburn is just right up the street, 15-minute ride, yet and still they control the entire catfish market in the South. And Tuskegee, on the other hand, to my knowledge, I didn't see a greenhouse or hoop house or none of that while I was there, even though Dr. Carver got a museum on campus. And it just seems to me that plant science would have been like, gotta have 2-3 greenhouses minimum. Anyway, I didn't let that deter me from continuing my relationships around the campus. So years later, like 3 years ago, I got in touch with a professor there. This company, moringa company called Cooley had about 20 tons of powder that they needed to get rid of because it wasn't suitable for their products, right? So they asked me, could I help them identify a buyer? So rather than me looking for a buyer, I'm looking for some research, right? So I contacted Tuskegee and Professor Nar Garoon. He says to me, I said, Professor, I need a couple of studies done. One on the use of moringa for livestock as a fodder for goats and cattle. And he says, can you send me some? So yeah, we sent down about 1,000 pounds and did a study on the goats. Turns out it increased milk production in goats by 20% and also improved their coat on the outside. They looked healthy, right?
Right.
So I already knew this, which is research had been done in Africa and India. So we came back a couple of months later. He says, well, we got some cattle. What do you think? I says, well, how much you need? He said, about a ton. So I contacted this company and they shipped a ton down to the university. They did a study. The papers came back just like I expected. Increased milk production by 20%. And the coats of the cattle were looking very good. They were vibrant. Seemed like they were healthier and happier cattle. And I was like, okay, so moringa tang for everybody. That, you know, 2-legged, 4-legged. This is the key to it, right? So sustainable lifestyles for animals as well as humans. So yeah, I mean, my experiment, I also used it over at Alabama State in Montgomery. We did a little light study on using it as a foliar spray. Okay. And I'm not sure if they mix it with ethanol or some other compound, but to combat pests. That was the whole outcome, because they had a pilot program they was running at Alabama State on hemp. And so my relationship with both of those plants is to a degree now where I'm trying to take some compounds from the oil, from baobab, and from moringa, and find a distillate or isolate in the CBD world, and combine those and come up with a product that deals with inflammation and pain for cancer patients and senior citizens. I think there's a huge market for that in my mind, and it just needs to be developed. And I actually did my own little survey at a dispensary, and I'd say 70% of the people that came in the door, they were looking for pain relief, not psychoactivity, right? So here it is, we got this fantastic product, moringa, that has all of the solutions for a healthier lifestyle for the Asian population. So a lot of my focus right now, that's where it's headed.
Right.
You know.
Right. We kind of mimic cultures a lot, and everyone's always talking about how obese and how many health problems Americans have, but we look overseas and some of these Eastern cultures, and they just do not share the same.
You want to pour that out?
I think it's not at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready, sir. They don't really share the same views as we do as Americans. They do tend to have healthier lifestyles, and a lot of it is the food they eat and kind of the practices they keep. So
I'm thinking to myself, wow, we need to get some gardens in schools. So I went to a meeting put on by the health department, and I just happened to be sitting by the director for the city and county of Sacramento, and she said to me, well, I like the way you're describing your systems, because we had this off-grid system we just had designed using vermicompost, right? So my friend that called me this morning, he actually had a worm farm up above Sacramento. So I go up there and I spend the whole day just learning about vermiculture, right?
Jeez.
He's got all of these worm beds and all of this compostable material that he's breaking down, and then I'm seeing how he was separating the worms from the compost, and they're a big old pile, and then he's actually now making worm tonic in addition to the compost. So we got a complete system. So while I'm sitting there, I'm going back and forth between the health department contact and the worm farm. So I said to Larry, why don't we design some bins that are food grade waste? Matter of fact, we can take some old 50-gallon drums, split them in half, and make grow beds out of them. So we did that initially and put the compost in. Man, you talking about some food that just, it's like overnight it was growing so fast, right? I was like, man, we're on to something. So we played around with it for another 6 months. And so by the time now I'm talking to this lady at the health department, she says, well, you know, James, I use SNAP dollars at the health department to lower our, to enhance our nutritional levels in the communities. And, you know, because we're at a young age, we're fighting off obesity, diabetes, and And so what we're doing with our funds from SNAP dollars is, if you have a nonprofit, we'll give you $2,500 to buy some compost, some rakes, some hoes, whatever you need to put in a little garden. And I'm like, well, what if I show you a way where you don't have to do that every year?
Okay.
I'll just design you a system that's totally off grid, that don't take any power, right? We get it from the sun, and we're going to use vermiculture. She says, well, I got $50,000 left in my budget for this year. You ready to draw up a contract? I said, let's do it.
All right.
So that led to 20 school gardens over the next, say, from 17, 18, 19. And the last one I put in was at Sacramento Boys and Girls Club. It was, I think, 9 by 30 or something like that. Pretty good size, but we used a steel foundation, and we covered it in Solarplex, like plastic, if you will. Covered the entire greenhouse, and I put some AstroTurf in it. I mean, the garden just, man. And I had a 300-gallon rain catchment system on the end of it with a 100-watt solar panel. Okay. And we had a moisture detector in there, so when the garden needed to be watered, the detector would hit the timer. You know, we're gonna now water the plants every day, year round, and you really didn't even need anybody to attend. And by the way, if you wanted to camp out overnight, you could just go in there and lay on the floor. I mean, it's just, it's not your typical kind of a garden, right? And but what I loved about it is you don't often get that opportunity where you can have a library which is adjacent to the greenhouse, right, and the boys club. So we got a seed catalog going at the library, right? Now we got a city college, community college right directly across the street with 2 greenhouses that's not even being used. So of course they was fascinated. They came over at the press conference, wanted to see what was going on and how all of this stuff worked, because when we had the press conference, it was about, I'd say about 40 days after they had opened up the facility. So we had actually an abundance of veggies growing, bok choy, collard greens, some kale. So when people came in there and they looked around, they was like, wow. So yeah, we had these that was my last one at the Boys and Girls Club, but the other schools, while we were going through doing all of this stuff, I had this idea that, okay, I need some curriculum developed. So I went to UC Davis and talking to the nutrition department, became good friends with the nutritionist there. And as a result of it, about 2 years later, we got a curriculum developed that covered everything from vermiculture to hydroponics to aquaponics. We actually did a study in Pittsburgh, not a study, but a demo project at the Pittsburgh School District. They loved the idea. So it's called Teens Can. And it actually is published on UC Davis website right now. But what I really love about it is it covers culinary, and it also covers a little bit of physics in nature, and there's a lab on one of the schools I have. There's a kitchen on the side and a lab on the other. So if you got a breakout of aphids, say on your plants, go in and put it under the microscope, young man. Yeah, see what's going on, right? Right. So, and then, you know, the young lady may say, oh, well, I think I want to make a salad. You know, we got some lettuce growing in here and microgreens. Take them right over there to the kitchen and prepare you a little meal. So it's this transfer of knowledge to the next generation, right? These young folks, because, you know, they can't live off of TikTok. No. You know, and Instagram, those are not food sources. So, yeah, that's just been my thing, you know, from the black farmers to the kids in school to the cannabis space, which I'm not heavily involved in, but I'm there mentally.
We're kind of all about the get your plant count, kind of get the doctor cert to grow your own.
Yes. Because, you know, if you're at a point in your life you want a plant-based diet, protein-based diet, I mean, come on, you need to be in the hydroponics, aeroponics, aquaponics, because these are things that you can actually have systems inside your house to grow year-round. You know, especially an aeroponic tower, you can do your herbs, your lettuces, and no real cucumber viney crops, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you got a big enough kitchen, man. You should have a garden right there. You know?
Do you have like would any kind of light do, or do you have to use like an LED light, basically?
Yeah, LEDs works because of the color formation, and you know, good photosynthesis is
key.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, there's all kind of ways people can start to rethink farming in the 21st century, and just have a little small container or whatever. I mean, you can reuse pretty much anything, right? Old tote tank. If you want to do hydroponics, cut it in half, put your fish tank on the bottom, and have your grow bed on the top. Use some cocoa fiber or some lava rock, you know, stuff like that. Shit, you can grow whatever. Now you got your fish down here and your veggies. So, you know, it's interesting. It's just you know, a shift in thinking.
In hydroponic aeroponics back in like 15, 16, and it's a little bit different than what's being thrown out in the mainstream farmers market. So let's talk about that a little bit. You're kind of feeding them aeroponically and hydroponically, but with fish waste and fish, and I think Rocky was doing snail. So when did that become? When did that kind of become a factor in going even more into the green of this stuff?
Well, as you know, hanging out with Rocky is like being around a university. You know, he's a mad freaking scientist, right? So, botanist, you name it. He knew how to create this ecosystem on his farm, unlike any other. He called it the circle of life, right? So, for instance, one of the things I learned from him is he has 10 acres of moringa trees on the farm, right?
Right.
He first started out selling moringa, then he got away from it, and then decided, oh, well, let me look at this stuff. Maybe I can feed it to the fish. So he grew duckweed and snake grass, and he dried it out, and then he took the moringa and processed it, and he pelletized it and he reduced his feed bill by 65%, he said.
Jeez.
Just those three things, complete circle of life. So that was duckweed, snake grass, and moringa. But he also was growing escargot. Okay. You know, it's like, I don't care nothing about no snail, but Rocky, man, some of the things I've seen him do, but you know, he always be out in his lab checking his pH. 6.5 is kind of standard, but he was a master experimenter with the fish waste, and I mean, he also fed the chickens moringa. He was raising cockfighters out there.
Yep.
Right? So but his ecosystem, you know, he had catfish, 3 species of tilapia, and of course escargot, and then the shrimp farm at the other place. So, yeah, just kind of seeing him master the craft of growing food in different containers, like in cinder blocks. He would use cocoa fiber and coconut core, lava rock, and you know, I'm seeing him growing lettuce and cinder blocks and baskets, just stuff that people just throw away, right?
Right.
So